Thank you so much, Michael. We have one more and then we will take a short break and we'll bring our key speaker in. Not actually seen here on the screen. Okay, so I would just like to introduce, so Michael is obviously a member of Creevagh Arts and Archaeology Collective. We work with experimental heritage in its many forms, and we have had a series of presentations, possibly not as illuminating as that one over the course of the last few days. So Patricia, I would like to welcome Patricia McKenna, and she's going to show some works in progress. Patricia is an artist, and this is particularly work that has come from, well, you can talk about it, from Licking Lake. So I'll just screen share one more time. Yeah, you can. It's on the duration, so I'll just play it.
I'll come through here. Is this okay?
That's fine.
Okay. No, that's fine. Thanks. Hello, my name's Patricia, as Rachel said, and I'm a member. I've been a member of the Creevagh Experimental Heritage Group, and what I'd like to show you now, a bit intimidated after that fantastic presentation of Michael's, which was great. Well, the work I've done is I'm doing some work in process. I went to Licking Lake with Maria and Michael, and I collected some water from the lake. I brought the water back to my studio, and the idea as a visual artist was to try and find a way to say, well, now what do I do with this? How am I going to deal with this as an artist, as another material? And I brought, as you can see here, originally I had done some work with ice, and it's something that I've been interested in, the idea of ice, because it works on so many levels, including that it's liquid material that becomes solid, that can become liquid again, and all the various connotations with that. So in the studio, I found, after being at the lake and thinking about just in general what was happening, I found that I was quite fascinated with how liquid the water itself, and I just wanted, that's just water from the lake in the jar, and I wanted to, it started to kind of dictate what way the work was going to go for me. I wasn't quite sure. I knew I wanted to do ice, but I wasn't quite sure. So I was thinking about the ideas Danny and others had been talking about, that maybe in the bottom of the lake, that maybe the char may still be there. Now, I don't know which one at this turn. Yeah, that's okay. So I found that I just wrote a very short text. And again, it was kind of like really thoughts around what is this water from the lake? You know, what way it's kind of guiding me almost. Because as an artist, I find that when you're dealing with materials, you need to step back. So I just wrote this very short piece about, I don't know, will I just leave it or will I leave it there? And again, it was this idea that in the water, I could see a little fleck of red. I could see something. And I wrote that piece, and the reference to Kerry there was that I had read somewhere that in 2006, they found char in one of the lakes in Kerry that they thought was gone. So these images are then of the piece that I turned into ice. Now you can see in some of them, the ice, again, it kind of changes and it almost becomes, I like the idea that visually it has its own world, as it were, its own landscape, that something that you start off with can be transformed to something. It might have its own mystery. It might be showing you things. Now in this, you can also see that the water was not clear. In fact, when I got the water, I first thought, oh, what am I going to do? And in a way, the first slides kind of had the water magical. It was kind of color and it was clear. But the reality was that actually when you went lower, when it came to ice, and I was thinking about the thermal layer in the lake and how the cold water and the char, it actually showed up that that brown and all that red, which visually I think can look quite nice, but that it actually was a lot of dirt or whatever in the water. And maybe that's so much part of what happens, that on the visual level, things can look beautiful. And you go and you look at things and, sorry, and they are so beautiful. But that then, sorry, okay, but that the reality is that in actual fact, it's kind of an illusion, because from the science point of view, if you were to look at something, it's quite different. And there is another world, like in the wells, looking at the creatures and seeing the things in the wells. So I have, sorry, just say, yeah. So that is just the actual, as I say, the ice, and then just looking at it visually. And at this point, I'm kind of looking at this work and seeing where it's going to go and where it's going to lead me, whether I'm going to go back to the lake, whether this may be a piece that'll have sound, whether a lot of, at this stage, I was interested in the visual, the materiality of the material, but I'm also interested in the content and in the context of what you're dealing with and how the lakes and the different ways that the lake exists. As I said, it can exist and look very beautiful, but there can also be this other thing of how do you keep the water clear? How does it work in a wider area? So I'm at that point, and I kind of feel excited that it's kind of opening up to see, well, where is this going to go? And then, of course, to bounce and work with others in the group and others around and learn, and not just learn, but to be able to take things and work with them as well. So how this, as I say, it's work in process, and the whole journey of going and collecting the water was important, was part of the work, and bringing it back. And the next stage as well will be moving there with it. That's a piece there that was very frozen, and to me it's almost like an incubation of something. And I think that's the last slide, is it? Yes, it is. And again, it's like the incubation of wondering where this is going and how and what way I will resolve it. And that is part of that process. And I'm delighted to be part of that. Thank you, Effie. Thank you.